That provides us with a very comprehensive review from Kyoto, from the positions of the stakeholders, both government and business. When the negotiations come to a conclusion, what should we be looking for?
Well, I think what we've seen is a huge investment of political capital from the really important players, the EU, the US, even Brazil, and South Africa and countries like that. So we're going to have a success, in inverted commas. But what does that actually mean in practice? And what I mean is, countries will be announcing a successful outcome at Paris in December 2015. But the question is, will it really be successful? And what we'll see is that countries come to some sort of agreement. But what I will be looking for personally is, now that we're in a bottom-up world, countries make their own commitments. And what's important, I think the metaphor of a train is a useful way of explaining this. So we're going to get everybody on the train, and the train is going to leave the station in Paris. But how do we ensure that that train moves fast enough? And I think how we ensure that that train moves fast enough and that it can speed up over time is that we've got robust international monitoring and review of international efforts. And this should have two functions. First of all, are countries doing, first of all, what they've committed to do? So annual reporting of progress. And second of all, is there a mechanism in place that countries can bring forward more ambitious commitments over time? Because the current level of ambition is not sufficient. And what's being proposed at the moment is that there'll be a 5-yearly process of review where countries can bring forward more ambitious commitments. And so those two things will be what I'll be looking for. It's the kind of boring, techie details of the agreement. Yes, we will have an agreement. We'll have the fanfare of an international agreement. But what I'll be looking for is there international monitoring of countries to ensure that they will be doing what they said they'd do? And second of all, will there be a process for assessing countries' overall ambition and for encouraging countries to be more ambitious over time? And those, for me, are two critical success factors to look out for.
And who should do the monitoring?
Well, this is an incredibly controversial issue at international negotiations. So countries like China in particular are incredibly protective over their national sovereignty for very good historical reasons. And so they don't like any form of international interference. And yet at the same time, there are absolutely issues around the way China would record and report its emissions. And there's often, post hoc adjustments of portfolio. So I think that for me anyway, and for Europeans, I suppose, we buy into this kind of internationalist world where international bodies have some form of oversight. And so for me, as a European, I think that this monitoring and reporting and oversight has to be done in a very transparent way by the UN, by some form of UN body, and perhaps in collaboration with the countries themselves. Obviously, the countries themselves will make reports to the UN, but they need to be evaluated by the UN, and there probably needs to be some form of very kind of robust accountability and rules of the game needs to be established at an international level. So it's an interplay between the international and the national. And some countries would be very much on the side of the national sovereignty and the national responsibility, where other countries would see a stronger role for the international kind of, and I personally would be more towards this side of the debate. But it'll be something I'll be looking at for very, very closely.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. You've certainly prompted us to watch very closely the development of the negotiations through to November and beyond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.